Hi, I'm Ricky, and I have the most obnoxious father of all time. My dad thinks he's the hottest man out there. He just doesn't know that girls are all over him because he's a millionaire. That's all. He brings a new girl every week, never the same girl twice. This week, however, he brought a very ugly woman, Shannon. She was thin like a paperclip, wearing too much makeup, and spoke like a drunk old woman. On our first meeting, she said to me, "Oh, I'm only sorry that you are 20 years younger than me." Ew! Then she and my dad laughed disgustingly. I didn't know why my father would date a woman like that. I mean, I'm used to him picking hot blonde 20-year-olds, like Shannon's daughter, Jessie. Jessie was so hot. She had the most gorgeous body and the most beautiful blue eyes you could ever see. I couldn't get my eyes off her. The four of us had dinner at an expensive restaurant. Dad said, "We should let the kids meet before we go over anything serious." What? I hope that Dad is not planning to marry Shannon. I want to date Jessie so bad. If she becomes my stepsister, then it would be awkward and somewhat nasty. I couldn't ask him over dinner because I didn't want to embarrass them. But when the women went to the restroom, I leaned over and asked, "Hey, Dad, are you really going to marry Shannon?" And he responded, "Oh, hell no. I'm marrying her daughter, Jessie." My heart stopped. I screamed, "What? That girl is my age. You are 30 years older than her." And he said, "Oh, what do you know? It's my life. Plus, she likes me too. A lot." I felt sick to my stomach, and I felt disgusted with Jessie. Why would she do that to herself, marrying a thirsty old man like my obnoxious father? But when the women came back to the table, I noticed that Jessie was not herself. It was obvious that she had been crying. I also paid attention that her mom wasn't allowing her to speak. She finished all her sentences. When Dad asked Jessie, "So, where do you prefer the wedding to be?" Jessie was about to open her mouth to answer, but her mom immediately interrupted and said, "At the Four Seasons Hotel, of course." Jessie looked pissed, but she kept quiet, and I began to understand the whole thing. They are forcing her into marriage. I felt really bad for her. The next day, Jessie was at our place. She wanted to meet with the wedding planner to discuss wedding details. When they finished, I came into the room and asked her, "Why are you doing this?" She was quiet for a few moments and then said, $2 million. I gasped. $2 million? What do you mean? She explained, "My mom is making me do it. She's in debt and desperately needs the money to start over. Your dad is paying me $2 million to marry him for a few years." That sick, sick man. Then, unexpectedly, Jessie turned to me, kissed me passionately and said, "But I like you though. I want you. Can we do something about it?" I liked her too, so I kissed her again. When we finished, I said, "You know, we could run away." Her eyes lit up. "But we need money. I don't think we both have enough." I told her that I had a plan. "You should convince my dad to give you half the money before the wedding. That's the only way we could get away." Then she came closer and kissed me again and said that she'll think about it. I was more determined to find a solution and run away. At night, I went to my dad's office to steal his money. I wasn't going to let him marry Jessie. I stole $20,000 from his safe and sent a message to Jessie asking her to meet me at the airport. We were very excited to get on the plane. We rented a small, cozy apartment to spend our time. When Jessie entered the bedroom, I had a bed full of red roses with candles waiting for her. She looked surprised, and before she said a word, I grabbed her and kissed her. By that point, I've been dying for this moment to happen. Jessie kissed me back and told me that she loved me. We took things to bed, and I guess you can figure out what happened after. Life was pretty sweet, until one day I went out to buy some food, and when I got back, I didn't find Jessie. I called her and sent her messages on her phone, but she wasn't there. Where did she go? When I sat on the bed, I noticed there was a piece of paper there. It said, "Thank you for getting me out of there, but we are not meant for each other." I blanked for a few moments. She must be joking. I checked my bag, and she left me with $1,000. What? I got tricked by a witch. I sat on my bed thinking of what to do. $1,000 are not enough to cover my expenses, and I knew I could not go back to Dad. He would have probably figured out by now that I ran away with Jessie. I mean, we did disappear at the same time. I spent 2 days thinking about my situation. when I noticed a wealthy lady entering the restaurant where I was having my lunch. And it hit me. Why can't I be a gold digger? I mean, girls do it all the time. And without any hesitation, I sought that woman. Her name was Janet, and she was 50 years old. I followed her for a week to know where she spends most of her time, and I started hitting on her. Then one time, when she was having coffee in the park, I sat next to her and said, "What a lucky cup of coffee." And she blushed, just like little girls. We started talking, and soon I was in bed at her house. We dated for a while before she asked, "Can you come and live with me?" "I'd be happy to," I said. So I ended up moving with her. She spent her money on me. She bought me all the things I need, including a brand new Mercedes. But then, 3 months later, Janet came to me and said, "I need you to come with me to a wedding." "Sure, babe," I said. "Anything for you." And we went there. And oh my God, it was my dad's wedding, to Jessie. How is that? I came close and Dad said, "Hey son, where have you been? I tried calling you several times. I thought you were on a trip or something." So Dad doesn't know anything about it? And then I looked at Jessie and said, "Hi, I hope you're happy about marrying my dad." She didn't say anything, but Dad responded, "Yeah, she is. And congratulations, you're going to become a big brother." Pregnant? She must be kidding. I couldn't believe her lies. She's been planning this all along. She wanted me out of the house so she could get the wealth all to herself and her new boy. I was furious. She manipulated both of us. I couldn't let that go by, so I decided to get revenge. During the party, I raised my glass and said, "Can I have your attention, please?" Everyone looked at me, including Jessie, who was really nervous. I said, "You know, Dad and I have the same taste. We even dated the same woman. She ran away with me for a week before she came back to marry him." Silence filled the room. Guests looked shocked. Jessie left the room. Dad looked angry and disappointed. I ruined the wedding for the second time, but I was proud of it. As bad as my dad was, he doesn't deserve to be fooled. This time, however, I was completely alone. I had to live on my own. Dad kicked me out of the house, and I had practically nothing, and Janet refused to take me back. I got a job and lived in a small apartment for 2 years before I heard the terrible news from my dad's lawyer. "Your dad passed away." Tears started falling from my eyes. I hadn't had the chance to make amends with him. But then the lawyer continued, "He left you all his money." I went back to our house and took over his company. In a few years, I became a very successful businessman. I got married to a beautiful woman and had 3 beautiful children. Life was going okay. But then, 20 years later, I was interviewing new employees for the company, and a handsome man called William showed up. After we finished the interview, I asked him, "You look familiar. Do I know you from somewhere?" He smiled and said, "I don't think so, sir, but you may know my mother. She's a successful businesswoman, too." "What's her name?" I asked. "Jessie Smith," he responded. Then he said, "Thanks for having me. I'll be happy to hear from you." Jessie? Did she get married? Wait, was she really pregnant at that time? Did I just meet my brother? I looked up her picture on Google, and yes, it was her. I had to know the truth, so I decided to meet her. I looked her up on the internet and went to her company. I told the secretary that I wanted to meet her, but without mentioning my real name. I went to her office, and when she saw me, she gasped and said, "What are you doing here?" "I just want to know the truth," I said. "Is William my brother?" She stared at me for a few moments and said, "Actually, he's your son." "You are lying," I screamed. And she responded coldly, "No, I'm not. I found out I was pregnant the same week we ran away. I hadn't had any relationships with your father." "Then why did you go back to marry him?" I asked. She sighed and said, "I didn't want the baby to have the life I lived. You didn't have enough money. I thought your dad was a better provider than you. He could buy me and the baby everything." I sat on the chair. I needed a moment to take that all in. "Does William know about this?" I asked in a shaking voice. She freaked out and said, "No, he doesn't. He thinks that his father is my husband who died 2 years ago. Don't you dare mention that to him." "Are you crazy? You couldn't think of a better lie?" I yelled. "No, and I prefer keeping things the way they are," she yelled back. I got out of the office and called William and told him, "Hey, I hired you for the job. And here we are. My son is working for me. Every day I see him, but I don't have the courage to tell him I'm his father."
I looked at her and I knew right away that she was going to be my enemy for the next few months, just like all the others were. Her name was Ava. She looked stunning with her good-looking features and amazing athletic body. She obviously takes care of herself. But no, I won't let her get close to my dad. You see, my dad is rich. And by rich, I mean he could afford renting an entire island for 2 weeks just to relax. And no, he didn't inherit any of his money. He worked his way up from an ordinary salesman to a well-respected CEO who owns multiple companies. That's why I'm very cautious about the women who approach him. Gold diggers are everywhere, and if I don't pay attention, one of them might seduce him and get half of his money. Or worse, she might kick me out of the house if they fall in love and get married. Oh, you're asking about Mom? Mom passed away when I was 8 years old. She had cancer, and when the doctors found out about it, it had already spread throughout her body. It was too late for chemotherapy or any other treatment. Both Dad and I were devastated after her death. And here we are. Dad brought Ava with him. He looked happy when he introduced her to me. "Hello, Caitlin. Come meet Ava. She works in fashion, and we may have business together." Ava smiled and said, "Hi, Caitlin. I heard so much about you. Nice to meet you." I didn't smile back. I just stared at her with utter aversion. "So Dad already told you about me? Ha!" A whole minute of awkward silence passed while I was picturing her getting chased and bitten by my dog Jojo. This is nice. But then I had a fake smile on my face and said, "Oh really? Nice to meet you too." Ava could feel that I didn't like her, but she didn't comment. Dad saved the situation by saying, "I think Caitlin is tired. We'll be in the office." Dad and Ava left me standing in the living room. This was the first time Dad brought someone to the house. I usually meet them at his company or at the parties he hosts for his employees, but not in our house, not where he and Mom used to live. I went to my room feeling anxious. I need to find a way to push her away. Back in the day, I used to steal Dad's phone when he was sleeping, unlock it, and send his girlfriends the most horrible messages and then delete them. Yeah, I knew his password. It was Mom's birthday, of course. And it worked. Dad wouldn't know why they broke up with him. He was so confused. Things went like that for a while until he caught me once. He yelled at me for not respecting his privacy, and since then, he locked both his room and phone. I woke up the next day and went to the kitchen to make some pancakes for Dad and I. To my utter shock, I found Ava drinking coffee there. Did she spend the night here? What the hell? Oh, now it's war. I asked her, "Oh, good morning. Do you want some pancakes?" She was surprised to hear my suggestion, but she said, "Yeah, sure, why not?" I started making pancakes, but I divided the batter into two. The one for my dad and I was plain old delicious pancakes, but the second one I put lots of salt in it. I tasted it and it was gross. Dad came in after a while. He too was surprised to see us both in the kitchen. I told them that I'll be bringing their breakfast. He was suspicious of me, but he didn't say anything. I told them with a fake happy tone, "Go sit in the living room. I'll bring breakfast to you." And so I put the pancakes on plates with 3 glasses of orange juice. Ava's cup was garnished with a bit of black pepper. She needs to know what being shady tastes like. We started eating and I watched Ava's face turn into utter disgust. She choked when she ate the pancakes, and when she drank the orange juice, she started coughing hard. She almost spit her drinks out. I was laughing hard inside, but I just had my poker face. I watched Dad panicking, asking her, "Are you okay? Is there something wrong with the food?" I looked at her, daring to say something, but she kept quiet and said, "No, honey, it's just my stomach. I'm going to get ready." She left the table while Dad and I kept eating. I was irritated that she didn't do anything, but that only meant that I needed to raise my bar and pull out my big guns. So from that moment on, I started messing with Ava at every chance I got. When Dad went out with her, I called him and pretended to be sick. When she's at the house, I would listen to loud music, spill the drinks over her dress by mistake, or even get on her nerves by asking about her exes. And she endured it all. That woman was cold as ice. So I had to go to plan B, which was stalking. If I wanted to get rid of her for good, I need to know her secrets. So one afternoon I went to the company where she worked and waited for her until she finished her work. Then I followed her to her house. And wow, she was rich. 2 luxurious cars were in front of her and a big pool outside. Wait, did I pass judgment too fast? Maybe she's not a gold digger after all. But while I was watching her, I saw her get out of the car with another man. He was super hot and attractive. Gotcha! I need to take pictures of the cheating that is about to happen and show them to my dad. They were still talking outside as I was figuring a way to enter the house. I noticed that the kitchen's back door was open, so I sneaked in before them. Her house was huge. I got out of the kitchen and found stairs leading to the second floor. I climbed up them and I found a big wooden door with Ava's name carved on it. Oh, so that's her bedroom. I went in checking everything. Her room was more like a royal suite. A big queen bed, fancy carpets, and wow, a huge closet. How many clothes does she have? But I couldn't keep exploring because I heard their footsteps getting closer. I panicked. I opened the closet and luckily there was a bit of space in the bottom shelf. I squeezed myself in and waited. I kept the closet's door slightly open to see what's about to happen, and my phone ready for taking pictures. Ava and the hot guy came into the room. They were still talking. Then she came close and hugged him tightly. I took 2 pictures and waited for what's about to happen. But surprisingly, nothing happened. She hugged him, then she gave him a few papers that were in one of her drawers. The hot guy left, and Ava stayed in the room. Ava changed her shoes and put on her PJs. Then she opened a little cabinet next to her, which turned out to be a refrigerator. She got out some snacks and drinks. Oh shoot! Was she planning to stay here the whole night? How am I going to get out of here? I need to wait for her to leave. Time passed and I was still watching her. I got super hungry and tired. Finally, around midnight, she turned the lights off and went to sleep. I waited a little bit to make sure she was deep asleep, and I opened the closet to get out as calmly as possible. But just as I was getting my right foot out, I heard a clicking sound. Who is that? I kept silent for a moment, and the clicking sound kept repeating. I went back to the closet thinking it was Ava. She must have woken up or something. But no, the door was opened, and I felt someone walk in. I got goosebumps all over my body as I saw a man wearing all black going in. He looked around and then stood next to Ava's bed and looked at her for a moment. Then he opened the drawers and took out a box, opened it and started taking out everything and putting them in a little bag he got out of his jacket. He's a robber! I started sweating, not knowing what to do. Should I call the police? But my phone went dead a few hours ago. Should I wake her up or keep it cool until he goes out? But I didn't have the time to think about all of that because the robber came straight to the closet where I was at. And as he was reaching his hand to open the closet over me, I screamed out at the top of my lungs, "Ava, wake up! A robber!" I pushed the door and kicked him. The robber was taken aback by my loud voice, and he fell on the ground. I ran straight to Ava's bed. She opened her eyes, annoyed and confused. I screamed at her, "Get up! You are in danger!" Ava woke up, but it was too late to run away. The robber was already up on his feet coming towards us. He looked pissed. I looked and saw a vase. I held it up and threw it at him. It fell on the floor next to his feet. Ava yelled at me, "Not this one, you idiot! It cost me $2,000. Really? Right now? The robber walked towards us, and that's when Ava had her serious face on. She stood in front of me and asked me with a strict tone, "Stay behind me." And just like in movies, I saw her fight that robber. It was clear that she'd been studying martial arts all her life. She punched and kicked him like a badass. In 2 minutes, he was on the ground and she was sitting on his back. She looked at me and said, "Get the duct tape. It's on the kitchen counter." I was startled, but I said, "Oh, yes, coming." I ran downstairs as fast as I could and I got the duct tape. I knew where the kitchen was. I entered the house from the back door. Ava tied his hands and his legs so we couldn't move. Then she called the police who arrived quickly. Ava was still talking to the police when Dad showed up. I burst out crying when I saw him. Dad ran to me looking worried and said, "Where the hell have you been? I was worried about you. I called you like 1,000 times. Oh, now he'll ground me." I started sweating, not knowing what to say, but I heard Ava's voice coming from behind. She was spending the night with me. You know we needed a girls' night out. I was surprised and I looked at Ava with eyes full of gratitude. Dad was suspicious. He didn't believe her, so he asked again, "Are you sure? She didn't bother you or something?" And Ava responded confidently, "Oh no, she actually saved my life. She saw the robber coming." Dad was silent for a while. He didn't know what to say. Ava left us again to check something with the policeman. And I said, "Hey Dad, I'm sorry for everything. It's just, I miss Mom. I burst out crying one more time. Dad hugged me tightly. Me too, sweetheart. Me too. At the end of the night, Dad and I got back home. I couldn't sleep before I sent a long message to Ava expressing how sorry I was and thanking her for what she did. I know that clinging to Dad was just because I was lonely and I needed to let my dad live his life like he deserves. Right now, Dad and Ava are getting ready to marry and I'm ready to go to college. I feel so much better thinking about my future, not Dad and his relationships. Oh, about that hot guy? He was Ava's ex. He came to take their divorce papers.